This episode of That Mental Ginger Show is brought to you by the Thomas the Tank Engine Man documentary. Watch Nick Jones's amazing BBC documentary, which was first aired in 1995, about the Reverend Wilbert Awdry and the Thomas the Tank Engine series. The documentary is out on limited release and copies are selling out quickly. I should know, I just got one myself. To purchase a DVD, Blu-ray or on-demand copy, please go to www.quantafilms, that's Quanta Films, all one word, .co.uk. There are also two charming mugs quoting the Reverend W. Awdry himself. However, these are very limited, so they will sell out fast. Thank you to Quanta Films and Nick Jones in particular for being our very first sponsor. I really do appreciate it. Hope you enjoy the show.
Alright, troops.
Hi Andrew, nice to speak to you. And,
Mike, it is an absolute honour to speak to you. This is literally like one of my childhood dreams, to get to speak to people that were involved in a show that was basically like the biggest part of my life. So up front, when I was young, I didn't have a lot of confidence. I didn't have a lot of friends. And I was always felt quite alone and kind of isolated. And the Thomas show itself was something that gave me a lot of joy in really dark times for me, and especially the music as well, because I love music. I love to sing and perform and things like that as well. Yeah. So just having that as part of my as my childhood was brilliant. And to speak to someone that helped create it, it's an absolute privilege. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on.
I didn't know how successful. Well, none of us knew how successful it was going to be, but it really did take on a whole new meaning to so many kids, and even still now, I get emails and tweets from lots of people who still absolutely love it, and they're not 5-year-olds anymore. They're knocking on a bit. Knocking on as me, but
oh, in fairness, I'm 35, and the second I found out that you were doing the remasterings of the collections of the CDs, I was like, buy. So much so that I've got twin 4-year-old boys, and when I take them, so I bought 2 copies. I bought a copy for myself to keep nice, and a copy for the boys because I knew they would destroy it because they're kids. So anytime we take them to nursery and we ask them what they want to listen to on the way to nursery, it's always Daddy's Thomas.
That's fantastic.
So they're always listening to that. To the point, it's only like a 5-minute kind of journey to their nursery. So when they get past the first CD, when they get past Stepney, they're like, "Who's that again?" And I'm like, "That's Harvey's music." I need to I was like, "I need to re-educate you, my boys. Come on." But it's like, So as usual, what I normally do is my kids are essentially lab rats. So I put them put on the All Engines Go reboot to see what they thought of it as well. And just filmed it, for market research. It kept their attention and they enjoyed it, but afterwards they were straight back to wanting Daddy's Thomas as well. With all the good music and all the good stuff. I was like, that's my boys.
Yeah, they've obviously got good taste. That's what I can say.
They learn for the best. What can I say?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Mike, I feel weird calling you Mike. I feel like I should call you Mr. O'Donnell because it is such a privilege. I'm just I want to do and tip my hat.
Please don't do that. Mike's great. Mike.
All right. Well, Mike, what I like to do to start off the show is to get my guests to tell us their origin story. So that's the one thing we all have in common. We all have an origins. So, Mike, for my followers, please tell us your origin story.
I was born in the early 50s in Liverpool, and so I grew up there in the 60s, which was a fantastic time and place to be in the 60s with all.
Yeah, the height of Beatlemania. Wow.
And everyone had a band. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You were either into football or you had bands. Some were both, but it was mainly the bands, because in those days there were so many clubs you could play at, and all like now. It all changed in the 70s, I suppose, the beginning of discos, and a lot of the live bands kind of fell apart. But in those days, in the mid 60s, it was phenomenal. It was great. So many gigs to do. And so I carried on with that until about 1969, and I decided to move to London with my band, because that's where all the record companies were and all the rest of it. So.
Yeah.
And as soon as we moved down and shared a flat together, we split up. Couldn't stand each other, so that was the end of that. And but I loved London. It was great. I mean, that was then the new music scene. Liverpool had kind of lost it by then. And so yeah, that's where I kind of started off my professional music career, and it went right on until, well, I'm still here really, still knocking these albums out. But Thomas was the big break for me. That was 84, I think it was. And I got to know about it through Ringo, and because he was doing the narration. And I called Britt Allcroft up and said, "Have you got the music sorted yet?" And she said, "No, but we're pitching it out to some, composers." So I said, "Well, do you mind if I pitch an idea?" And she said, "No, great, more the merrier."
Yeah.
And so I already knew Junior Campbell at the time. We were working together on various other things, and I said to him, not knowing how big it was going to be, I said, "Do you fancy getting involved in this?" And he said, "Oh, okay, yeah, great." So, sorry about that. So,
not at all, not at all.
we came up with 3 ideas, I think it was. One of them became the Thomas theme, as you know. And the other 2 were, I think it was Edward and Toby.
Wow.
Yeah, they were like the demos. There were 3 demos.
Yeah.
And, so when we actually got to work on the series, we thought, we're not wasting. We don't waste music. It's silly just to dump something. So we rejuvenated Toby and Edward to be what they became, which was their theme. So
that's absolutely amazing. What I find really fascinating is that it was through Ringo that you heard about Thomas. It wasn't through like Brett to start with. It was through Ringo. Were you really like close with kind of the guys from the Beatles at the time?
Well, my wife worked for the Beatles in the NEM phase, way back. She actually worked for Brian Epstein. Then she went on to work for all 4 of them. And then when they split up, she kind of went towards working for Ringo. So we were living at Tittenhurst Park at the time, which was John Lennon's old place, but Ringo was it. And at that time, actually, I was working in Savile Row in the Apple recording studio. And
wow.
Well, because I loved studios, so that was me. And so then what happened was we were both obviously living at Tittenhurst, and Ringo said, rather than commuting to Apple, because Apple was falling apart then, he said, "Do you want to come and work for me running the studio?" So I said, "Great, love to." So I ran his studio at Tittenhurst.
Wow.
And that became Startling Studios, and that's how I found out about the Thomas stuff. Because he'd gone for the interview to do the narration, and he told me about it, and I said, "Great, I'd love to get involved." So he gave me the number.
Are you still in contact with Ringo, or are you were you on his tour or anything?
No. He's moved out to America now. He lives in Los Angeles, so we don't see that much. We usually see him once a year or something when he comes over, and we'll have But my wife
he was over touring with his All-Star band like this year, wasn't he? Like, until obviously they got COVID.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen his All-Star band, or one of his All-Star band, many times. Not this last one, but no, he's great. He can't help himself. I mean, although at his age, he still loves being on stage, like McCartney. They can't stop him. You know what I mean? They need one of those big hooks to drag him off.
I don't think that would work, in all honesty. I think
I don't think so.
They've probably trained their neck muscles so that they can't move them. They're just like, no.
And I bet you they've got some minders as well that would sort that one.
Definitely. Well, there'll be like 10 bodyguards around each, and we move when we say we move.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because I always used to wind when I started doing the podcast, and I was winding up people that were saying like, "Oh, who would be like your number one guest?" And I was like, "Well, Ringo Starr." And I was like, and I would contact deliberately saying, "Right, I know you don't want to mention the Beatles, but I'm a massive Thomas fan." what loopholes, my friend.
I don't think he does much interview stuff nowadays.
Nah,
he just goes home.
Yeah, well, he's earned the right. In fairness, as of you for all the work that you done on Thomas as well, because it was a very long gig. Like if you look at the count from the series 1 to series 7, like, and you done Tugs as well in between. So that was what from 1983 was when it was starting to record it. 84 was released, and it was in the 2000, it was in the early 2000s that it went on, that when Hit took over. So it was a very long and prosperous career. And
it wasn't, to be fair to them, they didn't really have the budget to just keep churning out series like they do nowadays. So, you know, Brit had to raise the money left, right, and centre to create these things. So there was a big gap between series 1 and series 2. And series 3. It wasn't until about series 5 and 6, I think, that they got truncated into a shorter period. Because I remember we were doing the music for the series, and then we had to do 6 songs, you know, these video songs that we did. Immediately after the series, and then we were back into another series again. So it was like constant work then. But it was great. I mean, we really enjoyed it. It was
it was one thing that, like, for our side of the pond, like, we never really got to hear, like, you know, like the Little Engine songs and all those kind of ones that you done. Like, they were more like for the kind of American market. We never heard as much of it over in Britain. Well, so the advantage of the internet now is that I was able to just troll through that back catalogue and be like, right, I'm listening to this, and I'm listening to this, and I'm listening to this. And some of the work, and some of the work that you've done, like just even on those songs alone, they're fantastic pieces of work. Like they're brilliant.
No, we really enjoyed it. It was great being able to use the kids to sing as well, because I mean, I'm not a great singer by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a kid's thing, and it was nice to have kids on it. You know, that's the way it is. So
definitely. Like, I mean, I heard those, and I'm like, man, I was a brilliant singer when I was a kid. Why didn't I hear about this? Why didn't I hear about it? That would have been my dream come true to sing on that. Man. So what gave you the idea to kind of do the remaster CDs and like MP3s, like from now? Because you're up to, at the time it's recorded, up to volume 5, I believe.
Volume 6. I've done 5 volumes of the themes. The reason behind it was a lot of these themes no one heard. Well, they heard them, but they were mixed in with the sound effects and the Ringo's voice and all the rest of it. You never heard the standalone music at the time. I mean, a lot of people have done it now, you know, done cover versions, etc. But I thought it would be nice to re-record these things, and so the fans could hear them without, they're not the original soundtrack, because Mattel owns those now, but I can re-record them. So I re-recorded them as close as I could to the originals. And I just put the first CD out, and then it was so well, you know, accepted that I thought, oh, this is a good idea. And I mean, I don't sell millions of them, but you know, it's nice. There's a lot of fans, and I get a lot of feedback. So I carried on, and I've done 5 albums now, and you can get them all on www.modmusic.co.uk. Got to get the plug in.
Oh, of course. Like, don't worry. Like, your details will be at the black bar down there. I'll put your link, and I'll put a couple of if it's okay to put a couple of pictures of the front covers on either side, so they can see what they're talking about. Did the same with Nicholas Jones as well. It's only fair. Like, you guys gave us such joy, as kids. It's only fair that we give some of that back, as a thank you.
Yeah, no, really good.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, kind of outside of Thomas and Tugs as well, because you did the music on Tugs as well, which was quite a style change as well. Like, the 80s was more the kind of the synth recording kind of styles with the effects. Tugs was more the kind of, it seemed like a big band kind of style, like, you know.
Well, it was of the time. Everyone was using synths and saxophones, so that's and we didn't want to. I mean, the Thomas for music was kind of dated in a way, but it was you couldn't tie it down to any period.
No, I wouldn't say so. But the only thing I would say was, like, sax solos are definitely something from the 80s. I always say that to people. I go, the 80s was a sign of the sax solo, and we need sax solos back. I love them.
So do I. I love saxophone.
Definitely.
It's a great instrument, but you know, you don't get it so often nowadays. But
I know. It should make a comeback. It really should.
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, though, Andrew, it does date it. Once you put a saxophone on something, it sounds like it's from the 80s. So, you know, we just don't do it anymore. But no, so yeah, that was good. And that was the theory behind it all. I'll just recreate this stuff without the sound effects on them and see if it goes down well. And it did. So I've done 5 volumes. And my daughter, who has 2 children, has been pestering me to do like a sing-along album, which is
nice.
sung by me. And I've not got a great voice, but sung by me. So the kids can sing along with them. That's basically it. So I'm just putting the final touches on that. But that won't be a CD. That will just be a digital download. And, through Mod Music again. So, but it's turning out well. If you excuse the singing on it, and I don't have any kids backing me up. So, but it's good fun, you know. If you just want to sing along to it, that's all it's supposed to be, you know.
Yeah, and fair. Well, you don't give your singing voice enough credit. I think it's good singing voice. Like when I heard because it's you singing on like the ones like Little Engines, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I thought that was really good. Like, I didn't think it was bad by any stretch of the imagination. So give yourself more credit, my friend. Like the music music's in you.
I don't even like to hear the sound of my own voice when I'm talking. So when I'm singing, it's even worse. But you know, I do get around that, and with a bit of help from technology. And so this is going to be coming out. I don't know what even I'm going to call it yet, but this will be coming out in the next week or so. So you'll be able to listen then.
You know, don't worry. As usual, you'll have this loyal ginger follower that we come to get the stuff and buy it, as many of us will.
I'm not doing it as a CD because I'm not too sure really how popular it's going to be, because it's not the old themes, it's just the old songs. So I'm only doing it as a digital download. I don't think anyone's going to want a CD of it. If there's enough people requested, I'll get them pressed up, but not right now.
Well, don't worry. Like, if you ever do bring it out, right here. I think it's such a shame now that CDs seem to be going like kind of out the way. Like the last couple of cars that I've bought, they don't have CD players in them, and it's really gutting, because sometimes you want to stick a CD in and just listen to it and listen to the songs and just go over it again. So my wife, when she bought her car, she deliberately went for an older model, and the specific point was, I want a CD player.
Yeah.
Which worked out great for us, because then we could play your CDs in the car to our kids, and it carries on. So it's fantastic. And by the time this goes out, we'll be on our way down to Hull for our holidays, to see her family. So that'll be in the car getting played over and over again.
You must get bored with it in the end.
Not at all. No. I don't. I definitely don't. I love listening to all the music, because I know you said that sometimes, didn't hear there would be like the engines on the screen, there would be Ringo's voice as well, and then the music, and maybe it wouldn't listen to it. But I always loved listening to the music. I always found that any type of show you do, it's an immersive experience. If you take the music out of the show, it's not the same. Like if you took Ringo's voice out of it, it's not the same. Part of it is the whole collaborative and collective experience. The music is such an integral part of setting the scenes, setting the tone, of how you're going to establish the show in the series as a whole. So I always loved listening to the music. It was fantastic. It can music makes you feel so many emotions in the space of like 4.5 minutes.
The Tugs music, we decided to take a different view on it totally. So we didn't want to give each character their own theme. It was just a general kind of music track, which it worked well. It was more cinematographic music than Thomas was. You know what I mean? It was more of a score. But because they were longer episodes, I mean, you didn't get the time with Thomas. It was only 5 minutes long. Very difficult to create a soundtrack to it, because it was just all themes and a bit of incidental thrown in, and then you were finished. So the Tugs thing, we could take a bit longer on it. I think they ended up as we did them at 20 minutes, but I think they ended up as 50.
Yeah, from what I'd kind of researched, there were originally 30-minute long episodes, and then they were trimmed down to 20, and then they were trimmed out to 15 again. But it definitely gave you a lot more range to play with. It made it more grandiose, I felt, and Like it was like just it was absolutely fantastic. Again, as I was like saying, like music always helps set the scene with any type of like experience, any type of collaboration when it comes to that. Like if you don't have the music part of it, like for, at least for me anyway, that part of your emotions like maybe isn't twigging as much. You can be taken in by like, you know, the big explosions and the big effects. Like that's obviously part of it, but the music really, for me, it hits you right in your soul. Like, and I think it's something only kind of fellow musicians understand.
I totally agree. I mean, one of my heroes is John Williams, you know,
Yeah.
or Spielberg stuff, and I think his music is just, I mean, can you imagine Jaws without you know what I mean? It would be nothing, would it?
Yeah, they would just be looking at like, what's this weird rubber shark just floating in the water? Well, you don't have if the again something so simple, what or perceived as simple, obviously.
Yeah.
But it sets a scene so well. And again, like John Williams, like you think of the Empire theme in Star Wars, because I'm also a big anything that involves Star in it. I'm like, woohoo!
Yeah.
So
Star
too, so Star Tugs was obviously brilliant for me.
Yeah.
But you have that Empire music, dun, 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 and you're like, it just is like it's like it's about to go down.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, he was a genius for doing all that, and I can't think of any score that I didn't absolutely love it. I thought they were all amazing. You know, but,
Well, what would you say was like if you had like the opportunity to go back and be like, right, I could be involved in any other type of like project. Like obviously we're keeping you with Thomas in this reality, in every reality, because it's not the same without you. But if you had the chance to go like to like work with like a composer or be a part of another project, what would you say would be like your number one choice?
We got kind of not sidetracked, but we got pigeonholed into doing kid stuff. You know, we never really got the opportunity to leave that behind and go on to something else. So it was always kid stuff for us, and so there wasn't really any amazing projects that I can think of. I mean, Thomas was a one-off. I mean, they kept trying to give it awards, but there was no category for it because it wasn't stop frame animation or cartoon or any of that. It was live action, in fact, but it didn't have people in it. So we never did get. I don't think they ever got a BAFTA for it or one of those. And I think it was primarily because they didn't have the category for it, which was a bit of a shame. But never mind.
Yep. The crime of the century, my friend.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
As long as the kids liked it, that was the main thing.
Yeah, well, the kids absolutely loved it. I mean, and it's great because music doesn't matter the generation. Like you can always go back to it. Like there's a reason why like the Beatles are still loved by like people that are just that are growing up like 3 generations behind them and don't even have a clue. Well, there's people that
they'll always sell records to people. I mean, the catalogue. I saw McCartney on Glastonbury, and you know what a catalogue of songs he can do, and just unbelievable. And they still stand up today. You know,
definitely.
Go on.
I was just saying, like you listen to some of the stuff from back then, like you know the Beatles when he was with Wings and his own original stuff as well. Like it's better than some of the stuff that's getting churned out today. Like I listen to some stuff, I'm like, oh my goodness! Like I've definitely I've hit my midlife. Like the children are wrong. Like bring it back.
There's some good stuff, but I don't think there's anything that stands out like the Beatles did. I mean, it really was, you know, the songwriting capabilities, obviously not so much in the very, very early days, but I mean, once they got established and got moving, you know, they really did, you know, grab it and really worked at it. They didn't, it didn't happen. You know what I mean? It was a long, hard slog, and good luck to them. I'm glad I was around when they were around. That was all.
Yeah. No, definitely. It's a lot of things that can be that. In my case, I'm very envious of like, you know, like when everybody says like, "Oh, what would you want to have been around in?" And I'm like, I would have wanted to have been like around the 50s and 60s. Like you get Elvis, the rise of rock and roll, the Beatles sending it into the stratosphere. Like then like the 70s, you've got obviously your David Bowie's, like Rolling Stones were getting more of their prominence because they were always kind of in the Beatles' shadow, I think, in the 60s, like at the start, and then when you're in the 80s, it's the 80s.
Well,
but,
it
we
all
got,
went wrong.
but we got Thomas, so I'm
Yeah, you got Thomas. Yeah, I
there
mean,
we go.
I didn't really like the punk era that much. I thought it was just it was boring. You know, you want to see people throwing beer all over the crowd. You know, it didn't really do it for me. But then again, you know, I was a previous generation, if you like, so I still loved it.
Yeah, it's like we had like punk music. I'm the music I'm fine with, but the antics around it, I was like, really, we don't really need to do
they were
that.
just trying to shock. You know, that's what it's all about. You know.
Yeah. Well, it was the anarchism of like the revolution and all that kind of stuff, as they said like back then. And I'm like, yeah, but everybody has that kind of thing about them. Like the Beatles were anarchistic in their own way, because no one had heard that type of sound or that type of style before. And and so it was seen as, oh, that's a bit of a risk with that type of music. And then you listen to it generations later and go, it was a big deal.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, it took the rock and roll thing, you know, Little Richard and all the rest of them, and then the Beatles kind of followed all that because they were fans of Little Richard, etc. But they did their own like northern twist on it. It was a real live band, you know. That's the difference, you know. It wasn't orchestral in any way. It was just you know, great stuff.
Or what it's like now, it's like, come see my laptop.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
And I'm like, okay.
I do miss live bands, you know. I think that they were all, I mean, some of them were awful. I had a couple of terrible bands, but it was great. You know, you go along to these church halls and plug all your gear in, and, you know, they weren't bands. They were just people dancing to you. It was great.
You ever plan to get in a band together and touring at any point?
No, I don't really like these dad bands or granddad bands, as they call them nowadays. You know, I'm not a good voice to begin with now. I'm finished with all that now, but I really, really, really enjoyed it at the time. Brilliant. Great.
Fantastic. So what would you say was kind of like, if you had to pick like your instrument, like the main one for you, what would you say was your like number one instrument that you'd love to play and you would just play like kind of all day?
I suppose it's piano, stroke guitar, anything like that. I mean, I used to play bass in the band, but they were in the day, and I played drums in the band once because the drummer never turned up. It was one of those things, you know, what can you play? Well, I can play anything. So that's you couldn't, but I mean, you gave it a go, you know. Yeah, but I think piano and guitar, and then bass. That's it.
Good choices, definitely good choices.
Absolutely, well, I mean, you always get invited to parties if you can play piano.
Oh, definitely. Well, no matter what you could play, really. And it was the same deal. They were always like, Andrew, sing another song, and I'm like, do I have to? Yeah. I was like, my voice is breaking, guys. I'm not as good as I used to be.
Yeah, I need another drink.
Yeah. Back in the days when I did drink, then it was just like, nah, just not for me. But I always say that people are like, I'm this crazy without alcohol. Imagine what it was like if I was back on it. But Mike, I've just enjoyed talking to you so much. Like you're such a gentleman. You're such a great guy.
It's a pleasure talking to you as well, Andrew. It's nice.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So give it another plug, my friend. Like tell them where they can find you. Like all the websites, the socials, if you have any. Like sell it, my friend. Sell it.
I do. I have. Well, my website's www.modmusic.co.uk. I've got a Twitter account. It's at Mike O'Donnell 5, I think. I never look at the address on that, but you can find it anyway. And I'm around and available, as they say. So I'm still enjoying working. So that's the main thing. Yeah. And look after this vocal album, which will be coming out soon.
Yeah. Well, definitely looking forward to that. And one thing that I will say that I was really, really happy about when you done the remasters of Thomas, you finally got round to Donald and Douglas.
I did. It took me a while because it was difficult. You know, those bagpipes aren't easy to play and not easy to listen to either. Sorry, I know you're a Scot, but
it's all right. I mean, I had bagpipes at my wedding, and now it's something that it's uniquely Scottish.
Absolutely,
definitely. And when we finally got the Donald and Douglas ones, I was like, yes.
That's a good one.
Yes, I was so happy. I loved Ringo dearly. Like, and he wasn't the worst at a Scottish narration. When you heard ones like, no disrespect to George Carlin, but my God, that was horrible.
Yeah, I shouldn't have tried it.
But the worst part is like what we all do, like narrations of our own like Thomas episodes and stuff like that, and even being Scottish, you still go into the dinna face yourself, Thomas. We'll soon have you back on the rails. And you're like, I'm Scottish. I have the voice, and I'm still doing that impersonation.
I know, it's amazing, isn't it? You got to do it, but I mean, that's
It's
no,
like,
no one can do it like the Scots, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's like when whenever I would act, because when I was a kid, I would always act the stories out because I watched them all the time. And it's like, and I would do the accents as well, and I would always love doing Break Fan because it'd be like, it was like, you're a mickle nuisance to leave you behind. And like, cards, I'm essential. I'll carry you. You know what? And my mum and dad would just kill themselves laughing, just watching. They were like, he's going to be in the arts. Definitely. But he's got that about him. I
remember when I was working at Ringo Studio, and he did his narration in his own studio, obviously. So Brett came there, and I engineered it for them, and because he likes having people around that he knows, you know. So, but it was amazing because we had these scripts, and you know, the Donald and Doug. And Ringo's looking and said, what is this wish and all that stuff? You know? Because when you've actually got it written down, it's kind of, he looks weirder. So Britt had to give a good briefing for him of how to take it. And she wasn't very good at it. So that's how it was everyone taking potluck, you know what I mean?
I mean, in fairness, like when my boys, they were when they were born, they were 10 weeks premature, so they spent 6 weeks in the hospital, and I read them the Railway series stories when they were in their incubators and stuff. When I go and see them, and when I got to the Twin Inches book, even I was like, "Oh God, here we go." But it was fantastic. But I don't know if you'll be allowed to say this, but I'm still going to ask it. Did you do any music recordings for the Missing Coach?
No, I don't remember. I don't know what happened to that. I vaguely remember an episode arriving and then it was taken back. You know, something, I don't know what happened, because that was all political for some strange reason. But we never actually got to score it.
Oh man, well, it would have been brilliant. Like, because seeing like some of those like still images released and things like that sent the Thomas fandom into like nerdfana. Like myself included, like, because I mean, I can understand why it wasn't adapted. Like, I get it, but like, if that was the one thing I said, well, I would discuss with my Thomas friends. I was like, if there's one thing you could go back in time and say, like, to them back in the day, what would you say to them? Like, and some of them were like, you know, be careful with Thomas and the Magic Railroad and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, don't do that. Like, go back and say, just make the Missing Coach.
Yeah.
Don't release it. Bring it out in 30 years. And and you will hit even more money. It's nerdvana for us. It was fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah. Now I don't think that's going to happen now, I'm afraid. I think Mattel have steered Thomas onto a different track.
But good puns. I like a pun.
Absolutely, and it's but I think it's hit the buffers as far as I'm concerned.
Hey, another pun. Yes,
another one. Yeah, exactly. It's never going to go back to the old ways because it's too expensive to do. I mean, making the Thomas stuff back then was very expensive.
Oh, well, you're talking about like the stuff with Mattel as well. It's a lot of the fans have been kind of nerd rage over it, which is kind of understandable. But I always wanted to know, like, from kind of your side, from doing the original stuff and like doing being part of the original Thomas like creation, what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, these big corporations need to sell lunchboxes and things like that. They needed to relaunch Thomas. I don't think they realized what they had in the original series, but poor old Dave Mitton had died. Britt certainly retired. I think Junior's retired now as well. So they're never going to recreate the old series. It wouldn't be the same anyway. The new stuff, I mean, a 5-year-old doesn't have a point of reference, so they don't look at the old stuff. I wish it was like the old stuff. It doesn't mean anything to them. The new stuff's fine for the new audience, and I suppose in a way it does keep Thomas going. So the name Thomas. Personally, it's not for me, but listen, it's to his own. Some people will like it.
Yeah, but don't worry. Like there's plenty of our like my generation as well that take my kids and go, sit down, boys. I have a story to tell you. And it's a well, and that was there's an infamous picture that my wife took, and it was the boys in the wee kind of rocking chairs, when they were say about 9 months old, and me sitting in between them, and we're all watching Thomas and Gordon.
Brilliant.
That was serious. And my wife had put it up. She was like, "Who's the big kid here?" I was like, because you just seen what she was just like. What she's like, I love the picture because just the smile on your face. Because at that point I'd had a bit of a blip with my mental health and I hadn't been doing too good. And she was like, just seeing that smile back, the smile that she fell in love with. She was like, it was just fantastic. What seeing you and our kids all glued to the TV watching Thomas and just all smiles on their faces.
Fantastic. We get a lot of I get a lot of fan mail from people with autism. It's always been a big thing, Thomas. I don't know if it's the colours or the music, or I don't know what it is, but it's so popular with people with that problem, and it's they just absolutely love it, and it's just great, it's fantastic.
I think personally, I always say that I've always had like a wee kind of undiagnosed version of autism. For me, the reason I loved it was it made me feel safe, and it made me feel like it felt really lovely to me. And it was a place you felt like you could visit in real life as well. It was so kind, so friendly. Like you say, there was lots of like vibrancy about it. I think that's probably what gravitates to people. It wasn't like the story, the shows at the time. They were all very like lively, action packed, and there had to be there was barely any story, but there was a lot of lights and
but I mean, Britt was very clever the way she did it, and there was always a good moral to each story. Although she didn't write the original one, but it's the same thing. And
there was still she still adapted them.
Absolutely, But no, it's great, and of course this autistic spectrum, they call it, don't they? I mean, it goes from very mild to quite severe. So I mean, it's just the way it is, and I'm so happy that the audience was as diverse as it was, and it captured loads of people's imagination. Fantastic, love it, love it. Very proud to have been part of it, actually.
Yeah, and I can speak for. I'm pretty sure I speak for many a Thomas fan that we are so glad that you were a part of it. Because I always felt like it was like this having this little. It was like a wee collective of people with the same vision and all these special skills that. Where you get like that lightning in a bottle effect. You're like, you don't know how long this is going to last, but you get it, and it's going to be great. And it'll just burn bright, and that's what those series were for us.
Yeah, it was very well received and deservedly so. I think it was different, I mean, like nowadays, a lot of American stuff that's like really what I would call brash music. I mean, it's wham bam and all that, which is great, it's fine, but have the opposite end as well, which what Thomas was. Thomas was very gentle, really, in a lot of ways, although Dave Mitton used to love crashing the engines together, which you're not allowed to do anymore. But he had a great time doing it, and so did we. We really did.
Yeah, and it is. It's like you say, the wham bam style is because attention spans have shortened as well. It's like get the instant hook within the 7 seconds, or that's you're done, and you're like, But on the other side of it, there's people that gives them a sensory overload, and that's probably why another reason why a lot of autistic people gravitate to it. A lot of wham bam music, really intense. It's very overloading for them, and they can't take it in. They can't. It's too much. Whereas the slightly slower style and the more peaceful style of Thomas, is great. It calms a really troubled mind, and it was one of the reasons that I loved it, because even now, if I'm because I still struggle with my mental health, if I have a bad day and I'm not feeling my best, one of the things that I love to do, and I know it will break me back out, is putting on the classic Thomas, series 1 or 2, and just sitting and just watching it, and it makes me feel so calm and so at ease again. So for my own mental health, I personally say thank you so much for it, because it helped me through. It helped me through a lot of dark times.
Yeah, I'm so pleased it did for you, and as it does for a lot of people. And I think, you know, the other thing is music used to start off, you know, orchestral and quite slow and all the rest of it. And also, but visually, there wasn't really fast cuts ever. You know what I mean? There was kind of long, especially on Series 3, there were long shots of these engines coming through the night mist and all the rest of it. Flying Kipper, was that Series 3 or Series?
Flying Kipper was Series 1. Well, that was like, that's the one that like everybody says is one of the best episodes of all time, because it showed you what it was going to be kind of going forward with hindsight. And then Series 3, you had a lot of the tracking shots as well. Like I always loved ones like like Oliver Owns Up and things like that, where you're seeing those shots that like the yard, it looks so busy, it's so workman. Like Series 2 was very workmanlike. Series 3 had the more kind of tracking where it made it feel really real. And it was amazing. I mean, I could wax lyrical about it a lot, and I do. In fairness.
No, but it progressed really well over the years as well. When you think of Series 1, we were all feeling our way. You know, Series 2 and Series 3 and Series 4, in fact, really progressed. And also, they invented different musical instruments. I mean, samples and things like that. So it was a lot more orchestral sounding. It wasn't an orchestra because you could record it, but I mean, and time-wise, it would have been a nightmare. But I mean. So it was, you know, all that added to, and of course the cinematography in it as well, because they had that camera that used to come right down onto the track.
Yeah.
And that was really new, groundbreaking stuff, especially for kids, you know, programs.
Yeah.
But it all kind of fell into place, which is what it's all about, really.
Yeah. And then like the music style when you get to Series 5, that's John Williams inspired stuff right there for kids. But I mean, because I was only kind of Series 1 to 4, and then you get that stereotype of Thomas is for babies, you shouldn't be watching it, so you put it by. And then when I got a bit older, I went back into it. When I went to Series 5, my first thought was, is this Thomas or Die Hard? Because it was so dramatic. And again, the music adds to the drama. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. It was amazing. It was fantastic. Some of the scores you came up with, like for Cranky Bugs, Toby and the Flood, when it's really the dramatic, like the ship crashing in. Toby's basically going to die in a waterfall, and I'm like, wow, this is crazy.
Well, it's amazing because Britt and David used to give us or provide us with the films, obviously. And it's the first time we'd seen them, and it was like, well, you know, can you do this? And we'd say, yeah, absolutely. It was kind of a challenge, you know, because everything was getting bigger and more dramatic, and because they could, you know, that's the technology was enabling it. That's, you know, great stuff.
Yeah, and it was one of those things that whenever somebody says to me, "What was a kid's show?" I go, right. I watched Series 5 when I was 21, and I was and I was like, wow, this is fantastic. So. Yeah,
you're never too old for Thomas. That's the thing.
Definitely not. Well, David, I know you're a very busy man. You've got to go and get your pint. You've very well, you've earned it. And
no, I'm not drinking at 11 o'clock in the morning. I've just got something else I've got to do before.
Right. Well, just take inspiration from Donald and Douglas. If they were humans, they'd be drinking at 11.
Absolutely,
they would be down there, going for it. He's a pint of Terence.
That'd be great.
Yeah, definitely. It's been fantastic to speak to you, Mike. Thank you so much. It's really made my day.
It's not a problem, and you can edit all this together, can you?
Oh, definitely. Any of the wee bits where for anybody listening, like when my kids kicked the Wi-Fi and I was ready to shoot them and it cut out. It's I can take those bits out and add them in, but it's always good. Problem. Keeps it real, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Andrew, as well.
It really has. Thank you so much, Mike. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
I wish you the best of luck with your ongoing mental thing. I hope it's not too much of a problem for you for the rest of your life, but you know, you got to stay strong. That's the thing, and that's what it's all about. Watch more Thomas.
That's the plan. Well, I just keep watching Thomas and creating stuff about Thomas. It makes me happy.
Good man. Great stuff.
Well, until next time, my faithful followers, take care Stay safe.
And you. And listen, if you need any pickups or anything, just give me an email. I'll do it.
Don't worry. I will do. Well, you've
Right,
not heard the
mate.
last of this mental ginger just yet.
Thanks very much, Andrew.
Yeah. Thank you for your time, mate. Bye bye.
See you later. Okay, bye-bye.